Hello and welcome to Adoption Pop. We're a podcast journalist,
a filmmaker,
and a cultural critic burst pop culture's favorite adoption tropes.
Because we're adopted.
We're still adopted.
Always adopted, forever and ever.
Forever. This is part 2 of a 2-part episode. We were adopted in part 1. In part 2, we're still adopted. And we are still talking about the 2021 Netflix limited series, Colin in Black and White, written and narrated by former NFL quarterback and transracial adoptee Colin Kaepernick. If you haven't seen or listened to part 1, I would encourage you to go back and do so. And Crystal, in the last episode, you shared with us that it was your first time watching the film and that it was really impactful for you. And so I'm curious what you are most looking forward to talking about this week as we take a look at episodes 4 through 6 of the series.
Okay, hold on. I just got to do something real quick. Ready? Do you know what that is?
kissing the guns.
There's a word for it. It's called Kaepernicking.
It is?
Okay, so
Yep.
you showed us your bicep and you kissed it. What?
Yeah.
It's
It's called Kaepernicking. Colin Kaepernick, he created this in football, and it's called Kaepernicking.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. No, don't talk, Haley. No, don't talk. I wanna interpret what I think I just saw, which is both Haley and I are really skeptical. Haley then goes online to fact check Crystal in real time, and holy shit, Crystal's right. And so now she's come back to be like, oh my God, Crystal is correct. Is that what I just witnessed?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to be Kaepernicking from now on.
Oh my gosh. Okay, apparently he did it after he scored touchdowns. That was like his celly.
Yep. What we didn't indicate to listeners in the first episode is that we did, didn't we? We told them all that we had our gear on.
I don't know if we said that.
No.
For people that were just
I'm
listening and not watching.
Yeah.
I think before we talk about gear, though, since I have a big mouth and I talk about accountability a lot of times, Crystal, I apologize for doubting you about the veracity of Kaepernicking. I apologize. You were right. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I actually have nothing to say. Thank you, though. I do appreciate that.
I'm like reflecting because I'm like, why did I go straight to Google? It's not like Crystal's fed me a bunch of lines before that weren't true. I don't know.
My identity on this show is not the researcher. And the reason why I know what Kaepernicking is because after watching Colin in Black and White, I was so inspired by Colin Kaepernick. Actually, in the 3rd episode of Colin in Black and White, they do a flashback to him taking a knee during the anthem. And I was like, what? That's the guy? Because I had heard about it, but I had no idea that was him.
Oh.
And so that made him like even more intriguing to me. And so I finished all 6 episodes, and then I tried to watch The Price of Protest, but you can't get it in Canada, I don't believe. I tried. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, researching is not my strong point, or finding things on the internet, but I was able to get Kaepernick and America. And it was a great documentary. It just, like, I got to tell you too, I've been riding high for the last 3 days. And as I said in our last episode, Colin Kaepernick is my new civil rights activist crush.
I think when you talk about his taking a knee also, that, what he did was like incredibly courageous as a person, as as an athlete, as an employee, in his workplace, and as an adoptee, as a transracial adoptee also.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think, for so many of us to take stances on social justice issues is to put ourselves in conflict with our adoptive families. And so that's a huge, just one more personal risk on a list of personal risks that, he took and takes and continues to take every day in his work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the series really set an incredible foundation for the man that was to take the knee. Mm-hmm. It was like, of course he was the guy that did that.
Yeah.
Of course he was.
So do you want to talk more about the last 3 episodes, or did you want to talk about gear? Since we got sidetracked.
Gear is that we are all decked out in our football gear. Me and Sullivan are both Seahawks geared. And Haley is true to her Canadian roots. She's got the CFL gear on.
I'm representing Edmonton Elks. That's the team. Yeah.
That sounds very Canadian.
So Canadian. Speaking of Canadian, I had a friend who was talking about a camel toe. And then I said,
which is universal, by the way, not Canadian.
Okay, but do you want to know what is Canadian when you call it a moose knuckle? Moose knuckles. Have you ever heard of that before?
I thought moose knuckles are candy.
No. It's the Canadian version of a camel toe. And this friend of mine was staying at my house, and she had like black tights on. She goes, "Do I have, what's that called? A caribou heel?" I'm like, "Do you mean moose knuckles?"
People don't call it that. Are you serious? I've never heard that.
I've never heard that before.
You've never heard that? Are you?
No, because I thought
Canadian. There's a Canadian brand called Moose Knuckles.
It's a Canadian camel toe.
What's that?
What do they sell?
I think you need to Google it, Haley.
It's literally, Google it, because the logo itself is like, looks like that.
For listeners, Crystal just drew with her finger. Moose balls. That's what I think you do with your finger. That's what I think that was.
I thought they were gonna sell like camel toe prevention items, but no, it's just a brand. I've seen this. I did not know that that's what it was called.
Okay. Yeah, it's like jackets and like winter wear and stuff like that. Really, and very expensive gear. Very, very expensive. Okay, we've gotten way off track here. Bring us on in, somebody that is not me.
Well, what else is there to say about gear now that you've taken us to genitalia?
Did she just say genitalia on Adoption Pop?
You said moose knuckle and camel toe, and I can't say genitalia?
Oh, wow. Oh.
Let's talk about the film. Okay. So episodes 4 through 6 cover the latter years of Colin Kaepernick's high school journey, where he decides he wants to play college football rather than college baseball. It covers him attending the homecoming dance and also his quest to receive a D1 college football offer. There was something that appears in more than one of these episodes that I wanted to talk to you both about, because it felt resonant to me, and I wondered about you as well, which is Colin is frequently sick. Like, he's got this cough or he's got pneumonia or he's got like, and which by the way, he like plays through all of these various ailments throughout. But I don't know. What did you think about the fact, and it's sort of, it's not a main part. It's not a main part of any of the storylines, but it's there. What did you think about that?
I was sick all the time as a kid, constantly. I had so many medical appointments, so much blood work drawn, like getting a needle or having blood taken was just so normal. And it was always like, we can't figure out what this is, or you've had, if you get strep throat one more time, you're getting your tonsils out, or I had migraine. Like I was very, very sick, and so I related to that so much. And I have heard from other adoptees that are like that, but I mean, I know there's lots of kids that just are, get sick frequently. But do you think there's something related? Crystal, were you sick a lot as a kid too?
I was very sick. Same thing. I had pneumonia when I was 3 years old and nobody knew it. I was just like, I all of a sudden became very lethargic and was in the hospital. And that's probably one of my earliest memories, actually. And being so cold, but they wouldn't give me a blanket because they wanted to get my fever down. And yeah, same thing, strep throat. I ended up having my tonsils and my adenoids removed. I had terrible, debilitating back issues since I was 13. Like the list goes on and on. Always at specialist appointments.
Sullivan, were you sick as a child a lot too?
I don't think I was sick as often as what the two of you are describing. I got a cold every time. I lived in a place that had like 4 true seasons, and so I got a cold every time the seasons changed. And a couple of times in my life, I had the flu or pneumonia. But what really resonated with me about this is that he continues to play sports like at very high levels, like tournament level sports, while being like really deathly sick. And that part resonated with me. And I remember when I was in the 5th grade, like I threw up in school in the 5th grade, like not because I didn't know I was sick, but because I would like needed to power through. And like in high school, I had severe pneumonia and bronchitis in high school. I lost 12 pounds. Like it was super, super serious. And I was still playing tournament sports. And I remember like the coach like saying to my mom, like, she shouldn't be here. Like she should be home. And my mom was like, well, she wants, but she says she's okay. Like she says she's going to play. Like, and so there was like this pride and like, I'm okay. Like, don't worry, I'm okay type of thing.
Did I ever tell you that my adoptive mother convinced me that I was getting bullied because my ears were big and stuck out? I was only like 9 or 10 at the time. And she wanted me to have surgery to have them pinned back. And I did at 10 years old, before I had even grown into my head.
Do you think about that story now today, Crystal, differently than when you were younger?
Oh yeah. Like I remember, for lack of a better way of saying this, or an eloquent or gracious way of saying this, I really feel manipulated. I felt like I was a 10-year-old child that was convinced that my ears needed to be different than they were. And she coached me in the car on the way to the doctors, and I had my adenoids, my tonsils, and my ears done all at one time. Yeah. And like it was very traumatic. Like when they took the bandages off, my ears were swollen like 3 times their size. They were black and blue and purple. And I thought they were going to stay like that forever. Like I thought that's what they, because I was young. And I just remember like crying on the whole way home, saying, take me back, tell them to put my ears back how they were. I liked them how they were. Yeah.
It's so hard, Crystal. I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And I'm thinking about in this episode, we have actually, it's the episode called Crystal. There's an episode called Crystal.
It's spelled wrong.
It's spelled
right.
differently. It's spelled differently than Crystal spells her name. But really it looks at this idea of standards of beauty. And I think on the one, a very big part of this episode, as the entire film is looking at white standards of beauty versus black standards of beauty. But wrapped up in that, I think Crystal is exactly what you're talking about as well, which is Colin's adoptive parents had a very clear point of view about his appearance. We talked about that last episode with his hair. In this episode, it's who he should be with, which in for purposes of this episode, we're not talking about these girls like personalities. We're solely talking about what they look like. And so that's something that really does align with this episode and what we're talking about.
So in his graphic novel, Change the Game, this story is told a little bit differently. In the show, Colin takes someone to the homecoming dance. They're sort of dating kind of, but Colin's real busy. And so then they kind of fall off. And then there's another girl who his parents, his mom in particular, is trying to convince him to take. It's a family friend. And so the first girl he took to the dance, she was black, so beautiful. And the second girl is white. It's, and in the book, his mom says, she's from such a good family. And in the book, they're pitted against each other. Like his mom is trying to convince him to take the white girl over the black girl. Essentially, I mean, that's what it is. And I was like, wow. In the series, it's separated, and yet the pressure's still there. But in the book, I'm like, oh, so that's how it really was.
Yeah, and he even got pressure from his guy friends, his buddies. He's in the mirror and he's like trying to figure out how he's going to like approach Crystal, and he's like holding this hand mirror with the Denzel Washington poster in the back, and he's like, "Sup, Crystal? Sup, Crystal? Sup, Crystal?"
Crystal, have you cut that into a little video that you keep on your phone?
No, but I'm gonna now.
Crystal, you're talking about, one of his friends who is also black, who is sort of saying like, essentially, like, the white girl is better looking. You should take the white girl. And this idea that the white standards of beauty is just like permeates everywhere, permeates all of us, as well in that. And I'm reflecting back to one of the earlier episodes of the series, and we did not talk about this in part one, but they're talking about tokenism in the workplace, and a black man in the workplace, and a black man's hair in the workplace, and what's professional and what's not. And there is this back and forth kind of commentary on the white boss who is, ostensibly opening his arms to this black man working at the office, but like is like low key racist and says, engages in microaggressions. But the black man also as being like really willing, if not embracing, of being tokenized. That being a very real thing. And one of the things, again, we talked about in the last episode that I would want people to go back and listen to is talking about what I really think a lot of this is Colin making a corrective, perhaps, of his, making a correction on his own past thinking and his own past behavior that he deserves grace for, as we all do, especially when you know better and are trying to do better, as he's trying to do here. So for me, that having a friend, his black friend, also be, you know, very negative about Crystal, the black woman, in favor of the white girl, was one of those also.
We talked a little bit about the music last time, and I just wanted to point out that in this episode, we hear Madonna's Vogue being used. And I was like, oh, that's a choice. That's a choice.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Do you think I felt like that was a inadvertent? I think we made a connection. I feel like we made a connection there that wasn't made by him or the producers.
Well, and pulling back the curtain, if any of us choose something on social that would highlight a white adoptive mother, there is someone in our group that will point that out and just help guide us. So Colin needed that person to be on set to help with those choices.
Sullivan.
I didn't know if she wanted to be outed. I don't know.
I can take that out if you don't like that.
No, I think everything sends messages, whether you realize it or not. And I do think, like, in this film, I don't think Colin was trying to send a message by choosing Madonna. Like, given all of the context of the particular scene, like, I think, you know, it was just a like, oh, Vogue, the song Vogue makes sense here, let's put it here, as opposed to thinking of like the broader context of what Madonna is saying. And in fact, I know that he thinks about these sort of things because we talked about the music before. The very first song in this entire series that shows up is Kendrick Lamar's "Inside My DNA." And I'm like, for a transracial adoptee activist story to open with "Inside My DNA," like, that wasn't just a like, oh, this song is cool, you know, this beat goes. Like, it was absolutely deliberate. And even, again, we can pull back the curtain, as, you know, we talked about our football gear earlier. Like, I was unsuccessful in getting my hands on a Bad Bunny Super Bowl shirt for this episode, because that says something. And it says to me, it doesn't even say out loud, and it will only say something to certain people, and that's okay also. So I think, like, if I point out a particular song we might use on social, like, because like it all says something. I think there are certain people that have the privilege of not worrying about subversion. And I think when you're part of a marginalized community, you get good at it because you have to be. And I think for us as adoptees in our adoptee consciousness journey, we are all in a place where it is very safe for us in our personal lives, in our families, to say what we feel on a podcast and on YouTube. Like, we sit in a privileged position. It's risky for us, for sure. We've all paid the price. But we're in that position that I think many of our listeners, and we know this because, like, they tell us individually, like, they don't have that privilege at this moment in time either to say those kind of things. So I feel like when you're in the privileged position, like, you like to, however you can get the message out, and sometimes it's really direct, and a lot of things we say on this podcast are extremely direct, more direct than some people are comfortable listening to, and that's okay. But I still think other things that we have to do are more subversive.
Can we talk about Colin going to pick up Crystal for the homecoming dance and interacting with her family which is extensive. There's a lot of people in that house. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of things happening. And he just gets in there.
Loved this whole scene. I loved how they embraced him. And I think sometimes when you go into a space where it's people of your culture, you're like, you can feel like, I don't know if I necessarily belong. Are they going to see it on me that I am really disconnected from this culture? And I think that they just, took him in, and there was none of that. It was not even, it didn't feel present there at all. And you could just see how at home he was. And he made a comment about the pumpkin pie, and they said, honey, that's sweet potato pie. And they called him baby. And I loved this. I loved the way they embraced him. It was great.
Do you think she told him? Do you think she told her family ahead of time that he had white parents?
I thought about that, and I would probably say, yeah.
Yeah, I think she did too.
Well, and then Colin's parents asked to meet her parents, I think, and he's like, no, I'm good. Because he knew how uncomfortable it was going to be. And he didn't want to put himself in that situation. It was out of self-preservation. And I get that. I completely get that.
Well, I think, yes. And I think he was protecting Crystal also from his parents.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Although there is this scene where she calls on the phone. Because again, this is back in the landline days, so everybody had landlines. You got to call and talk to the parents before you get on the phone with who you want to talk to, and his parents are eavesdropping, and so he finally just hands the phone to his mother. He says to Crystal, like, "Here, talk to my mom." I think because his mother again, like, makes this assumption about this not just a black girl, but a very dark skinned black girl as well, which is important as part of the story, because color it's not simply that she's black. The colorism also enters the story as well. She's very dark. We are told she is blue black. And his mother makes assumptions about what that means. And so he puts Crystal on the phone with her. And, to his mother's surprise, she's lovely and articulate and seems like a very nice young woman.
Do you think that Colin connecting with Crystal was a threat to his birth or to his adoptive mother? Crystal's family could give Colin something that his adoptive mother and father could never, ever give him. Do you think that was a threat?
Sullivan, I want to hear what you think about this. The threat I saw was when he went to get his hair done and they offered him food. And she was like, oh, we ate already or whatever. And he's like, no, I'll take a plate. And then again, this gathering has food and he's ready to dive in or whatever. And he's so like pleased with it. And like, I was like, oh yeah, like you can't even feed him the food he would prefer to eat. And that's, to me, she's a nurse, but she's also like, she's like the epitome of stay-at-home mom, like doing these things for you, singing you to wake you up in the morning, like all of those things. And it's like, as someone who provides food for my children and my husband every day, all the meals, it's one of those things where when it's a thankless job, and yet like I'm trying real hard to make the food that my kids like because I want them to eat it and appreciate me. I relate to that a little bit too much. But anyway, that's my comment on the food. But Sullivan, what about you? Do you have an answer for that?
I think she does see it as a threat. And I think it's also driven by racism. It's driven by white supremacy. Also, right? She believes whiteness is better. The white girl is better. She comes from a nice family, right? As you said, Haley, she comes from a nice family. That is white. That's what we mean by nice. And so, yeah, I think it's both of those things. And to go back to the threat, because I think that takes us into what is the last episode of the series, in which we really, though we know through the whole series, we know he's adopted. It comes up before, but we get the actual moment of adoption as an infant in the last episode, and we learn that his adoptive parents had 2 children and really desperately wanted a third and couldn't. And in fact, they tried to adopt another child before Colin, which, fell through at the last minute. But, but we have one. We have another one. And I feel like this is not the first piece of media that we've talked about where we're like, but wait, we've got this other one in the back. How do you feel about that one? So, and I think this scene produced what I think became at the time, and was for me in the second watch, one of the most resonant adoptee lines in the entire film.
He says that he has always been the second choice. And I'd like to argue that he was actually the third choice, because that first adopted baby was the second choice. And this just goes back to the whole, our adoptive parents telling us, like, we wanted you, we chose you, and you didn't choose me. Like, you did not choose me. You took any old baby that was coming along down the chute, and it just happened to be me. And whether that was destiny, meant to be, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't a choice. Like, it wasn't. I really, really do not like that chosen word. I really can't take it. Talk a little bit more about that. But I also want to say, it wasn't until this episode, or maybe even the 5th episode, that they even talked about him having siblings, because you never see them through the whole series. And I will say that was probably a flaw for me watching it. It was like, oh, is this an afterthought? Why have they not talked about the siblings up until this point? I get that it would be 2 more characters that they'd have to develop if they had them in the series. But I also was like, why are we just finding out about them now? And there's something very different about being an only child adoptee and being an adoptee with 2 biological siblings of your adopted parents.
I totally hear you, and I wanted to see them too. And when I read the graphic novel, the siblings are present in this. Briefly, we see a sister with her horse, which Colin alludes to in the series. Oh, you have a sister that loves horses or whatever. And then in the book, his older brother is the one who helps him make all the super cuts of his plays and sends them off to colleges with him. And in the series here, we're shown that it's his dad. And so I was like, oh, you're giving your dad more credit than it needs to be. And it was your brother that helped. Like, I don't know. I'm missing the siblings too.
I took it in the film that they were older. And so the film, which covers only the 4 high school years, he was alone in the house with his parents. They didn't live there. And so like that was the reason why I felt like they weren't really present. And on the making of the film, the CD showing his football plays, in the film they do allude to it. Like his dad says, "Call your brother." He says, "Call your brother." But to your point, Haley, like he's not. We see him like if you blink too many times, you miss him. In there, it really is the dad. But Crystal, like I mean, of the three of us, you are the only one of the three of us that had the biological children of your adoptive parents in your house with you. And like, was there anything in this film that you saw, again, even though the siblings weren't really close, was there anything that you saw with respect to that and you like your experience there that resonated?
Yeah, like my brothers were 11 and 14 years older than me. So they were almost like parents in a way. Like they were definitely more adult figures. People would often, mistake my oldest brother for being my father if he took me trick-or-treating or whatever, right? And I really related to like me being the youngest and the center of everybody's world and my parents running around, not my parents, but more my mom. Like I was in everything. I was in every dance. I even did Polynesian dancing. I played every instrument. I I played every sport that I could. I did everything. My whole childhood was, so much of it was in the car with my mom, either running around to activities or going to doctor's appointments. And so I really related in that regard.
Why were you Polynesian dancing?
I'll tell the story really quick. So my mom loved skincare and she used Clinique. And I actually use Clinique now. I really love it. But I was standing there in first position as a ballerina. And the gentleman who was selling us Clinique looked at my mom and said, "Is she a dancer?" And my mom said, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, well, I teach Polynesian dancing. You should sign her up. We'd love to have her come along." And so, sure enough, I signed up and did Polynesian dancing.
Haley looks like she wants to say more.
I don't know that there's more to say. That it's strange to collect activities just for the sake of having activities. I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, like I think for my mom, I think she wanted me to be everything that she never was. I think she wanted to give me every opportunity that she never had. And I mean, I think she really wanted me to be like a famous person.
And look at you now. Success. So, okay, now I can kind of see this a little bit perhaps then in Colin's story, because his parents do, like, his dad like gets him this best quarterback coach, and I think they spend a lot of money and a lot of time like getting him to be in places where opportunities could arise. And we learn elsewhere that his older brother like also worked in the same cheese factory or whatever, wherever his dad works. And so, I mean, I don't know what the daughter did, but perhaps like, okay, Colin's gonna make it. Colin will, live out the dreams that, I don't know, maybe his dad's like Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, living out his old football dreams. No takers. Okay, got it.
It's been a minute since I watched that movie.
Do you think adoptive parents feel extra pressure for their adopted child to be successful? And the reason why I ask that is because my brothers to this day will say that they did not feel pressured at all to like become anything. And they certainly they did not receive the pressure that I received at all.
I think I may have talked about this on another episode. I for sure felt pressure to fit a certain vision that my adoptive mother had. And I think it came from her inability to have children that I don't think she ever got over. And my success was proof of her worthiness of a child. Like, if I was successful, it proved that she should have been able to have her own. So there was like just ridiculous amounts of pressure. And I think like what sticks, I mean, she's passed away now, and we were estranged before she passed away. But I think like what I think continues to stick with me is I have a really hard time celebrating success, even to this day. Like I'm on to the next, like, yeah, okay, I'm on to the next. And I think that comes from, not that I wasn't supported, because much like Colin, like I was very supported. They came to the things and cheered me on and did all of that. But like yes, and it was actually never enough. It was never, I was the kid where it's like, if I came home with an A-, why wasn't it an A? And if I had an A, why wasn't it an A+? Like that was, which again, I think some of that is generational. I know a lot of people from my generation had that experience too. But I think in my case, it was absolutely exacerbated by the fact that she couldn't have children.
Yeah, I relate to that. Just not things never being enough, and not being able to celebrate myself. It's hard. I still feel it. It's hard to celebrate myself or recognize the things that it's almost like I dissociate from my accomplishments in a way.
Haley's also nodding.
I am. Yes. No compliments, no celebrations for achievements. On to the next. And also, let's go on to the next topic. I think my favorite part of this whole series, like truly, is that it's around sports. And you're cheering for Colin to get what he wants when, like, we know the end. We know he makes it to the NFL. We know. But all the way along, he is striving. He's working so hard. He's playing when he's sick. He is giving it his all. He is speaking with authority and a level of leadership, even to his coaches, in a respectful manner. And all of these things that I'm like, wow, like, good for you, dude. Like, good for you. Like, you can just see those qualities throughout. And we just get rejected after rejected, or once he decides, like, I'm not going to play baseball, like he's waiting for the football offer. And it finally comes, and I cried. I was so happy for him, and like to see him get his dream, like knowing that he got to live it out. I know that, but I was like, yes, like you did it. Like he did it. And like all credit to him. And that was the thing, that he earned it. And I felt so proud of him. I was like, yes, way to go, dude. You did it.
I felt the same way, Haley. And while, as we talked about, his parents are supportive, like his parents do support him all the way through. Yeah. But the note that I made, what came through for me so much, especially in the second half of the series, was how alone he was. He was totally alone. And what I mean by that is, yes, he had these parents that got him this very expensive quarterback coach and, were at all of his games and drove him to tournaments, which that's not nothing. I mean, there are so many kids that don't have that kind of support. That's wonderful. And also, as we talked about, especially in the last episode, that all of that came also with their microaggressions towards him and covert racism and overt racism and not sticking up for him when other people were racist. And like, so that he learned, and his mother says it, Colin's not a talker. That's what she says. Colin's not a talker. And like, I felt that so deeply because there seems to be this assumption that because he's not telling his parents that he's not feeling the feelings, but he is feeling them. He's just dealing with them alone because his friends don't get it either. He's a little bit of a, like though he has close friends throughout, like you can feel him this trying to straddle two worlds constantly. And I felt that, for sure myself growing up. And you see that in the film. And the result of that is you're alone. Like, and you learn to deal with the highs and the lows by relying on yourself and nobody else. And so like, I was so happy for him also. And it made me just really sad that like he achieved all this, but he really did it on his own.
I'm really glad that you said that. And I'm glad that you did acknowledge the amount of dedication that it took for his from his parents to support him. And as I was going down the rabbit trail of Colin Kaepernick, there was a lot of people out there that really jumped on him for saying that some of the ways that his parents treated him were problematic, meaning, talking about the racism. And then, of course, everybody jumps on and starts saying, oh, well, but look at everything your parents did for you. You never brought it up before. Like you said, they were supportive before. And I think this really goes back to that whole concept that both things can exist at the same time, and that they could have been, yes, they were supportive parents. Yes, the time, the money, the energy that they put in was extensive. And also, he didn't come through his childhood unscathed either. He was still impacted by where they really couldn't show up for him. And I mean, adopted or not, I think that's very typical for most families, but also I think it's very, there's more to it when you're an adoptee.
And I think that takes us to not just the last episode, but really the end of the last episode. And before we go there, I also want to point out to what you just said, Crystal, and again, we talked about this a bit in the last episode, but I really wish Colin Kaepernick's parents would have said something publicly in support of him in this film. I really, really, really wish they would have done that. I think for all of us that needed to hear a white adoptive parent say, I messed up and I'm sorry. I think I really would have loved it if they said that. But instead, what we have is adult Colin, who is being the adult that high school Colin never had, because the last episode is called Dear Colin. And what it is this letter that we see adult contemporary Colin Kaepernick writing to his teenage self. And he's at the end of the last scene, adult Colin steps into the frame with the actor Jaden Michael, who's played teenage Colin. And they don't physically interact, but adult Colin slips this letter in a notebook into teenage Colin's bag, who's on his way to Nevada to play D1 football. And and teenage Colin drives away. And as he gets sort of just out of town, he stops and he winds up opening his bag and he finds this letter. And I'm going to tear up. Like he reads a letter from adult Colin to himself. And it just like, it moved me so much because I was like, this is, we say sometimes like, being the adult that our childhood selves needed and couldn't get. And this is yet another example of Colin being there for himself because nobody else was.
Don't you think that's a part of what we do now, though, is like as adult adoptee advocates, like we are showing up for those younger selves that we needed. I'm so proud of us. Like, amazing. I love that he had that in there. I love the letter. I love that he stepped into the frame, and it just felt so empowering.
Yeah.
Again, about you did it, and like you can show up for yourself, and you can choose that at any time, any point in your life. You can choose to show up for yourself. I loved this part.
Even as you both were talking about it, I'm like getting chills through my body thinking about it because it really was so powerful. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. The last episode is something very, very powerful. And God help my parents if I had gotten my hands on content like this as a teen. God help them. I would have been unstoppable.
Crystal, I would say that you are pretty unstoppable now. And I think you should give an award.
Okay. Thank you. It's probably no surprise who is the recipient of today's award. This award recognizes an individual who had the patience to wait for the life they truly dreamed of and not bend to the pressures of what the world told him he should be. Someone who stayed true to himself, no matter the cost. Someone with great courage to risk everything to stand or kneel for what was right. The True to You Award is given to Colin Kaepernick and honors not just what he achieved, but what he was willing to lose so that others may gain justice, dignity, and hope. Thanks, Cap.
Well done, Crystal. Adoption Pop is podcaster Haley Radke,
filmmaker Crystal Park,
and cultural critic Sullivan Summer. In researching this episode, we relied on the National Association of Black Social Workers' 1972 position statement on transracial adoption, Change the Game, a graphic novel by Colin Kaepernick, Ed L. Ewing, and Orlando Casito. Julia Moore for People. Colin Kaepernick says he found it very difficult to call out adoptive parents over racial issues. In the show notes, there are further resources for transracial adoptees and their parents, so please be sure to check them out.
If you like what we do, drop us a rating on your podcast app, find and follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and let us know what you want us to cover in future episodes.
Next week, tune in with your sweetheart, your crush, or your situationship. Love is in the air on Adoption Pop.